It's interesting that there's this idea of culture that I wouldn't say pervades culture, but is still culturally dependent. So specifically, I'm thinking about the case of the Iranian soccer team. I don't know if you guys heard about it. I guess maybe not in U.S. news. Australia's a big deal, but they're playing soccer. And the question is, are they going to go back to Iran? A lot of them filed for asylum and they were allowed to stay, but then a lot of people changed their minds. The question is, why did they change their mind? And it seems sort of obvious that there's a lot of pressure from the Iranian government to come back. And so the question is, what do, right? Do you say, hey, I'm in charge of my own life? Do you go back because your family's there and they're going to do something to them? Australian government made a comment that, there's a lot of, things that, are weighing on the context. We can't, take into account all those things. That's why some of them change their decisions. You see some of them going back and they have a parade and it seems like they're happy. Who knows what is really going on over there? And then you see some of them that stayed in Australia and they're playing soccer with the locals. They're warmly welcomed. And you think, how do we make decisions in life? So this came up recently when I was talking about to somebody else about the idea of Dalit, the untouchables in India. But I don't know if you know this, but the untouchables are castes which are really the lowest of the low. They do things like rat catching. Apparently, the rats, when they're like, a foot or so long, I guess that's too much for a cat. If you've seen the cats in India, they're pretty scrawny. And poop collecting. In the US, nobody would sign up for these, even if you pay them lots of money. But people there do it. They're part untouchable caste. And people say, hey, it doesn't mean much, right? You just make of your destiny what you will. There's no caste system in India. There's people who are like justices in the Supreme Court of India that are from the lowest caste. It's not a big deal, but it is. And it's not that there can't be people who break out, because there always are. But it's the idea that it's really hard for them to, and few succeed. There's some people that would have done fine no matter what situations they are in, as long as they're alive. But there are many, many people who would not do fine in many bad situations. So going back to this idea of culture, I wonder if there are different cultures, say Eastern versus Western, where one is more easy for you to just throw off these constraints that a lot of people have, family obligations, obligations to country. They say, hey, I'm a free person. I make my own decisions now. Thank you. I'll decide what's good for me and take it from there. Are there certain cultures where it's just hard to throw off those shackles, if you will, because it's just so bred deeply inside of you? Like going back to India, I don't think anybody holds these people at gunpoint and says, hey, you go be a rat catcher or I'll blow your brains out. It's not going to happen that way. There's no coercion, even, I don't think, if you will. I think a lot of it is just that this is what they've done. This is what you do. And they really can't see much else other than that. The thing about parents, what is our obligation to kids, right? Kids don't often make much of a choice. The parents are the ones who teach them these values. How important it is to listen to your parents, how important it is to be together as family, how important is it just to put up with abuse because, hey, this is family and family bonds are the most important thing in the world. You might as well be dead if you didn't have your family there, right? There's a lot of things that aren't great about family. I think most people would admit that. Even the staunchest supporters of family ties. But I think their idea is that you got to put up with some stuff because it's family. And I think you have the opposite view, which, is very, I would say, Western, that you don't have to put up for abuse from anybody, including family. I think in Asia, a lot of people don't like visiting their relatives. Not always a most pleasant experience, but you got to do it. That's what you got to do. Many people have grandparents that may not be the kindest, but hey, you go say hello to them. You go say goodbye to them. You go ask them how they are. Doesn't matter if they respond or not. It's your obligation. Again, that's family. On the one hand, you have many people, I work here in the U.S., many people in the West who don't take care of their parents. Maybe their parents didn't treat them well. I don't know what the backstory is. But you have this old person hanging out in the hospital alone. Technically, their family exists. Practically, they don't. I don't think there's a right answer. I don't think anybody blames the Iranians who stayed. And I think there's probably a lot who blame the Iranians who went back, but I don't think really you could blame them either. There's no answer to this dilemma, right? You're going home to try to make it better for your family. Is that going to happen? Who knows? If you say, is it good for your family? I think the answer is no. If you say, is it better for yourself? I think the answer is yes. But is it good for yourself if your family suffers? I think that's the idea of how close this bond is. How much of life is about me and literally only me versus how much is life about me and my family, right? I think everybody has different thresholds, different amounts of suffering they're willing to take for their family because they feel bad if anything happens to their family. Really bad. And they're willing to take abuse and suffering to prevent that. Many times it's futile. But hey, you tried. That's what you got to do. It's family. I think how simplistic it is viewing things here, where, in the hospital, you take care of patients, you force people to do stuff. In other places, they have their rights, and it's funny because in America we believe in rights, but many times patients are coerced. I would say, as someone who works in a hospital, they really don't want that, but somehow they get roped into that, or they didn't protest long enough. Give them medications that calm them down, so they could do what's best for them. But wait a minute, didn't they just say they don't want that? How does this change that, right? I was talking to somebody else at work about this dilemma. You may say people are not in their right minds, but does that give you the right to assault their body, as in surgery? It's very difficult, right? You may say somebody's crazy, but does that mean you have the right to cut off his arm? That's, I don't know. I don't think we have an answer for that question. So we're left with the idea that people have different beliefs. They have different values. They do different things. And oftentimes it looks to others as in they're doing the wrong thing. But within their system, it makes sense. And is that by itself the definition of a rational decision and not crazy?